What's up, guys? Today we've got a comparison, the Galaxy S10e versus the Pixel 6a. So the S10e is a very cheap older flagship. It's a very compact as well too. And yeah, I thought this would be a great comparison. So you guys can sort of see the difference between an older flagship, the pros and cons of an older flagship versus a newer mid-range here. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's start off with pricing. Pixel going to cost you around $450. The S10e is going to cost you around 200 bucks. It's very cheap. I'll have those links down below here. But let's look at the build quality of both of these phones here. So the S10e, it is a more premium feeling phone. It's IP68 glass and metal phone here, and the Pixel does have a plastic back, but it also has these metal railings, so it doesn't have a cheap feeling. And I'm okay with the plastic back on here, honestly, because it doesn't feel cheap. You will almost mistake it for glass, and also if you drop this, plastic is not going to crack, like a glass phone will. So that's also like one pro. But the S10e does feel more expensive to me, just having those premium materials. As you can see, the S10e is definitely a smaller device. They're almost about the same size in thickness as well too. The S10e does have a headphone jack. The Pixel does not. They both have stereo speakers as well too. But build quality wise, I really like both these phones' designs. Now, one thing you will notice is that you do have a fingerprint scanner on the S10e, a physical one, as opposed to the Pixel's in-display one, which it's definitely, it works, but it's definitely not the fastest, and it's nowhere near as accurate as or as fast as the S10e's fingerprint sensor as well too. But it does work. I just wish they would add Face Unlock to the Pixel phones. Alright, so for the displays, you do have on the S10e a dynamic AMOLED display. It's HDR10+, 5.8 inches, 1080p, 438 for the PPI. The Pixel, it is a 6.1 inch OLED display, but it's only HDR. And then it's 1080p, 429 for the PPI here. So I do really like both displays. They're both 60 hertz displays. Yeah, as far as the size difference, it really doesn't matter because you really might like the more compact size. They're both kind of compact, but the S10e is just for people. It's just way more comfortable to one hand than the Pixel. So if you have small hands or you like small phones, this is a great phone for you. But yeah, the screen quality on both these phones, I think looks absolutely great. They look like they have the same amount of bezel too as well. You will see a difference between the punch hole as being on the right hand side as opposed to the Pixels in the middle. But as far as screen quality, I mean, these are two very nice panels, so I have no issues with the screen quality on here. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at the specs, because this is the interesting thing about this phone in particular. So the Pixel 6a, it does have the Google Tensor chip, stock Android 12. It also has the Mali G78 GPU, and then we have 6 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of storage, no SD card support. The S10e has Android 12, One UI 4.1, and it also has the Snapdragon 855 on here. Adreno 640, you do have micro SD card support, and you have 128 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM on here as well too. So you can see the Pixel does beat out the S10e, especially in the single core and in the multi-core score here. But performance is pretty much going to be the same. It's going to feel the same because they're both 60 hertz and they both kind of just open applications the same. Sometimes even the S10e might open things slightly faster. So I'll just show you guys. But what's pretty interesting about these two chips is that the S10e actually games better than the Pixel, which is pretty funny. So I'll go ahead and show you guys that. But as you guys can see, the app opening right here, you guys can see just blazing fast on both of these devices, really. Just super fast. Now, if you were to ask me which device is going to be better for gaming, like I said, it seems like the Tensor chip, it should be able to play at the same settings as the S10e, But the S10e will play PUBG at a higher settings. It'll play Fortnite at 60 frames. This cannot. So it's pretty interesting. So the chip, I don't think it's not as well optimized yet. But so far the S10e, as you guys are going to see, does play at higher graphics. As you guys can see the S10e here, if you go to graphics, we can play at HDR Extreme, even go all the way up to Ultra HD, and it plays extremely smooth, as you guys can see. I do have a full gaming test on both of these phones, actually, if you want to go ahead and check that out. But gaming on the S10e is really nice experience. Now on the Pixel, it's still very nice experience, but like I said, the games just aren't optimized yet, so you can do smooth extreme, but you know, once I go to HDR, we don't have HDR Extreme, and we can't go up to Ultra HD. But it does play fairly smooth, so that's one thing to note. So if you were to ask me, I still think the S10e is just better optimized for gaming. It's just going to play at higher settings. Guys, let's go ahead and keep going here. So I want you guys to know that Android 12 is the last major OS update for the S10e. And it will get about 3 years of security patches. This will get 3 years of software updates, major OS updates, and then it'll get security patches. So you do have a longer, technically, lifespan for the Pixel if you do go ahead and get a mid-ranger. As far as the features, now here's the thing: stock Android is very clean. It's extremely clean. You know, you only have your Google apps installed on here. Now with One UI, you do have a lot of Samsung's applications and stuff on here. But you get a lot with the software as far as Samsung desktop support. Extremely useful. Secured folders is on here. Adobe App Modes. You also have a kids mode. One UI just has so many things that you can do with it. So it's just, to me, just really cleaned up over the years. One of my favorite skins. So definitely keep that in mind. It is very feature packed. Alright, so I do want to go ahead and test out these speakers on both of these devices. Let's go ahead and start with the S10e and max out. The Pixel off the bat does have stronger bass. Now the S10e, it does have a more crisp sort of sound. So it's kind of, they're both very good and very on par with loudness. It's just different sounds coming out of both of these. So this sort of focuses more on mids and highs, and this is very bass heavy, the Pixel. So if you listen to a lot of bass music, you'll like that, that thump coming from the Pixel. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but I would say it's a tie, basically, depending on the person's music taste. Guys, so I do want to show you guys some side-by-side stills, but before we do that, I want to go ahead and go over the specs of these two cameras. So the S10e, it does have a dual camera setup. It's a 12 megapixel standard, a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also have 4K 60 video, and then you have a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K. Now the Pixel, it does have also a dual camera setup. It's a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60, 8 megapixel selfie cam, but it only shoots in 1080p 30 for the front. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys these side-by-side stills. Be sure to let me know which camera did you think looked Here's the video on the S10e. Here's a 0.5. Here's the video on the Pixel. .6. Here's our 2X. Alright guys, so lastly let's talk about battery life. The Pixel pretty much beats the S10e here, it just has a bigger battery. So the Pixel does have a 4,410 milliamp battery with 18 watt charging. The S10e, it does have a much smaller battery at 3,100 milliamps, 15 watt charging, but this phone can do wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, so that's always a nice feature. The Pixel does not have any type of wireless charging, so that's sort of like a pretty good trade-off there. Alright, so screen on time on the S10e about 4 hours 30 minutes. Pixel can get up to 6 hours pretty easy. So basically it comes down to what you want in the phone. So if the S10e, if you want small size headphone jack, you also want to play games, in my opinion, at a better setting. You get SD card support. So there's just a lot to like with the S10e. The Pixel, I think the advantage is definitely the stock Android experience, getting updates very fast. Also, I really like the camera quality on the Pixel as well too. Yeah, and the Tensor chip is pretty fast. So what do you guys think? Which phone do you guys think you would buy? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.